allow the body and the mind to be a little bit more calm. But it's a practice. It's not taking a pill or I need to lose weight. I see there's alternatives. Usually something that's worth it takes a bit of effort.
The Dan Flow is all about human stories, the knowledge and experience of those people, the insight, ultimately the hope to better understand our own consciousness. Eon Swiegers, I want to say welcome to the Dan Flow.
Thank you. It's amazing to be here.
So I've really wanted to have you on the show for a long time, but you weren't in the country. And then when I found out that you're in Cape Town, I was like, okay, I have to get Eon on. There's been a lot made recently. I know Joe Rogan does heated room yoga, and more and more people are taking breathwork seriously, learning about their nervous systems and all kinds of things. I know that you've worked with lots of professional sports and pro golfers, track and field Olympians, ballerinas, ballet dancers, horse riders. I think there was jiu-jitsu in there as well. And so I think what a lot of this conversation, what I'd like for it to be about, is sort of that practical approach, because people hear about yoga and it's like, yeah, but I'm not that flexible or whatever. And take this sort of more practical approach of what are the things that people can do, incremental benefits that they can gain for sports performance or their mental health or whatever the case may be. But I think before we sort of head straight into that, just want to learn a little bit more about you. Like, how did you stumble into yoga?
So I first heard of the term when I was in high school, and the word kind of stuck with me. And after school, I decided to go to the gym and, maybe build some muscle. But the mind-body studio at the gym at the time was very appealing to me. It's always sort of thinking, stretching is not a bad way to keep the body healthy, to balance things out. And so after some time doing weights, maybe 3 months or so, looking in the mirror when you have to do your bicep curls, I decided, no, I find the stretching to be, more beneficial for my body, and coming from a bit of a sporting background. So playing soccer and all sorts of things and tennis and so on, I felt like more movements in the body worked better for me. Now, this is not to say weight training is not beneficial for the body. I think you can gain a lot from it. But for my specific needs at the time, I felt like the yoga was something that could work a bit better. And so I attended my first yoga class, and after that very first class, I opened my eyes and I just knew this was challenging enough for me to definitely spend more time doing.
So you're saying it was challenging enough, but I just want to make sure I don't misunderstand you. And you say that you thought that the stretching made more sense to you. You're not necessarily saying that you found yourself naturally being very flexible and therefore being good at yoga, so that's why it appealed to you.
Definitely not. I mean, for me, it was a case of having to put my body in positions that I'm not used to. If I run a lot, my hamstrings get tight, and that's definitely where I met the yoga. So hamstrings being tight. In a general yoga class, you will have numerous postures challenging the posterior chain, the backside of the body. So hamstrings come into play for so many postures. So instantly I met resistance, and my personality type is the kind that would want to then explore deeper. I'm a pretty curious person. I always want to learn more. So when I find something to be quite challenging, that's appealing to me. And I just felt better being able to, move my body in a variety of ways. It wasn't even, my first class, for instance, wasn't even, I'd say, a real yoga class. I think there was a gym ball involved. And I To my knowledge, that's not entirely yoga. It was added.
To date, you still haven't found that.
To date, I still haven't found that specific type of class again. But I mean, it just broke the pattern of what I was doing at the time. And
I'm saying sort of soccer and tennis and running.
A lot of hand-eye coordination things. So a little bit more background. I was working with kids at the time, and I would see about 350 kids per week doing hand-eye coordination on the soccer field, tennis, all sorts of ball coordination type of things. So I enjoyed the concept of movement, but when it came to my own body stepping off the soccer pitch, I would kind of want to build muscle. Meanwhile, a good approach would have been to, combine the stretching, the lengthening, and the strengthening elements at the same time.
And so I know from your story that you also don't have a studio. You've never had a studio. You've taught in something like 20 different countries and 5 different continents. You do yoga teacher training. You work with, as I said before, with sportsmen and so on, sort of nomadic yoga instructor. I know you're based in Austin, Texas, but you sort of go by invitation or arrange a space and get people, and somehow that's always worked for you. I find that pretty special.
Yeah, I think my yoga career took an interesting path. Early on in my yoga career, I had physiotherapists attend classes of mine, for instance, and that opened doors for me. So they would attend the classes. There's more detail. My classes always ended up being a little bit slower, perhaps, with a bit more detail. A MMA fighter that I think is phenomenal says slow is the fastest way to get somewhere. And that's been true in my industry or in my specific teaching style. So more detail allowed me to, maybe get these physical therapists that have a lot of knowledge on the body to suggest me to their athletes that they work on. And that opened doors for me along the way. And I've just been really fortunate and very lucky to honestly have word of mouth do the work for me. So it's thanks to yoga students of mine that I decided to base myself in the US. The different travels I've done, even putting myself in a place where I have access to world-class teachers that can help me. And it's just been an interesting path in that sense, and it's been working for me.
Amazing. So I know that I'm guessing it's around 2007, 2008. You're talking about you started doing some yoga by 2010. You started teaching by 2016. You started Eon Yoga.
I started the school in 2016. That's correct. So even that was a more natural flow. Students of mine were constantly asking me, listen, please open a school so you can certify me so that I can become a yoga teacher. Now, you've got to understand the landscape was a bit different back then. It was more difficult to find a school. Today, there's a lot of yoga schools, but back then, it was a little bit of a different playing field. And so my students sort of said to me, hey, it's time, please. We want to learn more so that we can teach.
So it's born out of demand.
Exactly. And I knew after my very first training that running workshops or running courses would eventually be something that I would like to do, simply because I want to spend more time with my students on a mat.
On the like you say, the detailed work.
Exactly.
As opposed to a normal class where I think a lot of the more contemporary expressions of yoga that happens in studios and gyms all over the world, I suspect, sort of has the music going, and it's a little bit of an aerobic class in a way. And so, if you've worked on all of these postures and you're moving through them, then great. But if you're not doing the posture right, you're just jumping to the next move, but you don't get to spend that time on the detail and really understanding what you're trying to do with that particular posture.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I think, firstly, all the different yoga styles that are popular in today's day and age, I'm happy about that because it's still yoga. So I think I need to start there.
Movement is movement.
Movement is movement, right? But if we talk about an instrument, I like playing guitar. If I give you an instrument and I say to you, Dan, play this instrument, and you've never held a guitar in your life, the sound that's going to come out of the instrument may not be that pleasing to the ears, right? But if you get a foundation, if I say to you, listen, you can play some open chords, this is what they look like, the fingers get sore, they need to thicken and, form calluses. You then move over to some bar chords, maybe some scales. Then I say to you, listen, there's a mini version of this A chord. You can play a triad, it's just 3 notes, but it's still an A chord. And you can play it on multiple parts of the fretboard. Now, you're gaining a better understanding of this instrument. And then I think it's easy for you to, just flow, if we want to call it that. So for me, it's always been about educating. I want a student to first gain knowledge and then experience this knowledge. So I share something with you. This is how we can move into this posture. And it's not the only way, but it's a way. And based on all the classes I've taught or the students I've spent time with, I use my experience. What else can I use? I use my experience and say, based on this experience, this is a possible avenue to follow in getting into the posture. This is what Ashtanga yoga would say. This is what BKS Iyengar would say, to stick to the more formal,
classical schools of yoga.
Exactly. But like I say, I see in the Western world, people struggle with ankle flexibility. So for that reason, we can modify. So I always want to be able to justify why I, go into a certain direction with a posture. But now that I then give the knowledge or share the specific way in which you can do it, I need the student to experience it because it is experiential. And so then the student has to practice that, and it's got to perhaps become a part of this person's, body.
Repertoire.
Exactly.
Well, you were saying with the guitar example, like you have to practice the chords until you can hit the chords without thinking about it too much.
Exactly.
So you also want the body to be able to move through space and find these different forms and understand how to do it properly so that it doesn't sound terrible. And to stretch the analogy.
100%. And that's also where even thinking about time spent in a posture. A posture is so different if you spend 5 teacher counts in it, the traditional Ashtanga way, or if you spend 2 minutes in the posture, or if it's just one breath. It's very different. But if you spent a bit of time within postures that you meet in a very hot class where the flow is quite fast, then I believe you've got the foundation. Does it make sense? So that is where I always value educating the students first. Anything I discover as I move along in this little journey of mine, I want to share that with students. Maybe if we think about breath work, first it's, taking more oxygen than what the body needs, say the Wim Hof method. Practice it. See what it does for your system. And then you look at later science and they say, no, you got to breathe less. It's all about less. But I don't want to confuse breathing exercises with the way you should breathe on a daily basis. An exercise is like you do physical exercise for the body, you now do exercise for the lungs. It's a practice. So now you experiment with the too much oxygen in the body. Then you experiment with very little oxygen in the body. And playing with all of these things, you will now have a better understanding of your lungs because you will know your body, you will know your lungs better than me. So you will establish, okay, this breathing exercise actually calms me down more. This works a bit better. Same with the physical movement. I just want to not think, get on the mat, music must be loud, and flow. That is amazing. That's what one student may say. Another student may say, no, I want all my yoga classes to be a little bit more workshop-based, where I keep gaining some form of information in the process.
Help supplement my own practice at home, perhaps. Or
Exactly. And I mean, a self-practice, I believe it's my opening line on a training. I always say, the most important thing I want you to take from a training that you do with me is to establish a self-practice, have a self-practice. Even if we think about the way that we move on a daily basis, we sit, you eat, you sit in front of the TV perhaps at night, you sit when you drive to work, you sit at your workplace. The amount of movement you do is very limited. And
those seats are all sort of at the height. Like you sit at a table and eat in the same table, that's the same height of seat,
yes.
Your legs in the same position. The car, similarly, every time you're in the car, that's a stationary position. The couch, maybe you have some variety this way and that way.
But it comes at a price.
Yeah.
It comes at a price. It takes extreme flexion or extension out of joints.
So you're talking about these sort of typical lifestyle issues that we have. Let's say, add to that we walk on really flat floors.
Mm-hmm.
Our steps are standardized. Even if you take the stairs, they're standardized most of the time. And so all of this sort of putting you into, and I think you were saying earlier about like the soccer and the tennis and hand-eye coordination exercises, but all of that moves you in certain ways. But it doesn't move you in all the ways that the body can. Just like if you were living out in nature, you'd be walking on uneven ground, barefoot most likely, occasionally climbing a tree and stepping on rocks, and your ankles would be twisting from side to side and forward and back all the time. And you don't get that. And you think, if we look at a lot of the, let's call it sort of maladies of our day, lots of screen time, people sitting in front of a desk. And when they're not sitting in front of the desk, they're probably sitting somewhere with their phone. Sort of. Can you see the postural impacts? What would you do for them? Let's say from a yoga movement perspective, maybe some simple examples or ideas for people to think about. And what, in your experience, is the sort of psychological or emotional impact of those postural issues that people develop?
So firstly, I think what I'm about to say, some of these things have become more popular in recent years. But even if we just think about nature, nothing in nature is straight lines. That's just not nature. But everything that we make as human beings, look at this table. Do you want to be a table or do you want to be a tree? This table is the final product, it would seem. A tree seems like there's more possibility still. No, but the thing is, nothing is straight lines in nature. And even as we strike the floor, we put our feet into shoes, right? And this is something that I see everywhere nowadays. The barefoot approach,
trying to get those toes to spread out and find the foot, like really position the foot in the ground.
Think about, I've got a yoga student. He or she struggles with balance. And firstly, I observe it on the mat. But secondly, the student comes to me after class and tells me that they struggle with balance. So the awareness is there, which is a great step. It's a step in the right direction. But now we, for instance, look at, okay, the glutes can fire more. Let's make the quads stronger or tighten the core, but sort of neglecting the joint that bears the most weight in the body, which is the ankle. And I, having dealt with a lot of soccer students, know that the ankles can really be problematic for sporting people. But now you want to strengthen the ankle, but it goes even further. How do you move your foot or your feet on a daily basis? If you strap your feet in shoes, as you mentioned, your toes cannot extend as you drive forward. So now with your normal walking gait, the toes do not lift off the floor upward, and then you spread the toes and plant them down. They sort of become passive. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's how it works with muscle activation.
Saying if we compare them to your hands, if you do this with your hands, like open hands, sort of clawing away at the sky versus sticking your fingers together and just turning them at the wrist, you can imagine the difference in motion that you allow, and with that, the strengthening of the muscles and the tendons and everything else in there.
All of it. It's got a ripple effect. So now you've got feet muscles that function the way they should. And by focusing on the extremities, in this case, we're talking about the foot, strengthening the muscles of the foot, strengthening the ankle, that student will definitely notice a difference in their balance. And balance is an interesting one because all of us have heard of an older person that falls, breaks a hip, goes in for hip surgery, and doesn't make it. You want to look after your balance. Yeah. And I don't.
Or you make it, but it takes so long to recover, especially for the older person, that now they've lost their mobility. It's too difficult for them to actually get back on their feet again.
Yes. And I mean, deterioration in the body usually happens in the spine first and the parts furthest away from the spine. So think of hands and feet, etc. And with our daily posture, getting back to the question specifically, talking about how this affects us on a daily basis, really. Feet and shoes, surface that's just flat. We do not develop the strength and the balance in the feet that we possibly could, that will give us longevity. Hands, grip strength. I see there's a lot of science out these days talking about grip strength directly being linked to longevity. You need to have grip strength in order to swipe on your phone these days. Things have changed a bit. We don't forage for food anymore. But if you gain the knowledge, you can do something about it. But you need to make it a practice. So I don't really only focus on, hey, let's make the most of this hour on the mat. I want the yoga to be a 24-hour thing. I think it was with the previous group in Cape Town that we had this saying, or it just became a saying, be in yoga. What I mean by that's maybe a little bit, should I say cheesy, but be in
either
yoga.
Very, very cheesy or very philosophical.
Exactly. One of the two, right? But
sort of taking things from how you move on the mat. I know it's something you like to say, how you move on the mat is how you move in the world.
Yes, exactly. It's a case of taking responsibility, learning about your body as you move on the mat, going, okay, my hips are tight, and introducing more movement on a daily basis. Good example, and I mean, teachers of mine have spoken about this for a long time now, but just being in the squat in itself, just squatting down onto your haunches, for instance. It's the type of position that a chair has taken away from us. And surely certain parts of the world will more easily do it because they have it in their daily lives. It's something they do. I think about people in India, you would see them sit next to the highway in a little squat or do their washing in that type of position. But
I mean, I know from East Asia as well, from Taiwan and China and so on, people are very comfortable to go sit down on their heels. It's not just squatting on balanced on their toes. They actually
bring the heels down.
And you go, oh, it must be a genetic difference, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe it's just their bone structure is different.
Yeah. And even
until you really work at it, and then you discover, oh no, it's just something I needed to acquire.
And you can develop it. You can bring it back into your body. But you need to be disciplined. You need to have a practice. So you gain the knowledge going, you know what? I have lost range of motion in my knee joints, or my knees seem a bit sensitive or tender. I do a lunge and it's not what it used to be. It doesn't feel
stabilized. It feels like it might just do something. It might just surprise me.
Yes. So be more playful. Make that, for instance, a part of your life. Squat down. Spend a bit of time there. If it's uncomfortable, get up. Squat back down later in the day. Spend a bit of time down there with the knees in extreme flexion. with the hips in extreme flexion, with the back muscles working a bit to support you in that posture. And these types of things can really unlock a lot for your body. I honestly feel as though, touch wood, being healthy and spending time with my body and feeling the way I feel on a physical level and direct connection with the brain, of course, because it's one thing, right? The brain would seem to me as if it's part of the body. It's not something that's outside of the body.
It's your nervous system doesn't just sit in your head, right?
Exactly.
It does run through your whole body.
Yeah. So if you feel good, you would not want to give it up. You would want to maintain a lifestyle that supports this body, And for a lot of people, if they are not, I don't want to use the term fit, it's too broad, but if mobility is not quite there or things truly just become more and more limited, bring that change. Go to a yoga class. Establish how your movement is limited. Ask questions. Don't just rely on the yoga teacher. Do your own research. Learn more about your limitations. Because in the end, you need to be your own teacher. You need to be able to deal with your body in the best possible way. And no one's going to hold your hand doing it.
No one else has got your body. So you're saying, I think it's an important part that a lot of people see yoga as almost, it becomes a little bit of a cult thing almost. Like there's a group of people and they're all yoga, and you see them walking down the street with their rolled up mats under their arms, and they're part of a certain kind of tribe.
Trendy.
A very trendy tribe. And they all, drink smoothies and whatever else. And, that's a culture. And if you're not part of that, and if you don't want to be part of that, then this isn't for you. Where what you're saying is it's actually about establishing sort of radical responsibility for your own body.
Spot on.
And by saying, I am in this world that's going to limit my body movement. If I'm an autopilot, I'm going to be walking on flat floors with my toes neatly sealed up in shoes all the time. I'm going to be sitting on the same level of surface. Maybe I go to the gym and I'll do a couple of exercises, but they'll all be very regimented in specific little areas. And I'm not really exploring the full range of motion of my body, which means I'm not really giving my nervous system the ability to move through the whole body, which helps to unlock a kind of awareness in your body that gives you a greater awareness of just being alive, of being around.
And playfulness. Why must we stop being playful as grown-ups? Even on the yoga mat, we want to hoard more postures in our posture bank account. I want to, if you now feel driven to,
am I winning yoga yet?
Exactly, thinking enlightenment lies on the other side of a challenging posture. Why be so serious? As grown-ups, everything seems to be so serious, and I really do my best, and it's almost challenging to be yourself all of the time, your authentically self. Kind of, it's challenging because the world has certain kind of rules and
expectations
you need to fit
and seeming expectations.
Yes, and so I encourage playfulness. For instance, when I take my dog for a walk, I would like to walk on the pavement and balance in one line, and I don't see people balancing on the pavement on the sidewalk.
I see toddlers do it.
Yes. So. And I think I truly am fortunate in that I spent so many hours with kids when I was transitioning into adulthood, and observing them being playful really allowed me to deal with grown-ups in a playful manner on the mat. Because that playful element is going to allow for this whole margin for error. It's okay. You can't balance on your hands. doesn't matter, fall out of it, but I'm going to help you so that you see how you fall out of something. But be playful. If things get too serious, you lock up. It's almost like the breath on the mat. Some people just don't want to mention the breath because just breathe whichever way you want. But that's maybe not enough, because you do get something called optimal tongue placement, for instance. With the tongue, and you can try it for yourself, you press the tongue up onto the palate of the mouth. The tip of your tongue is close to your front teeth, but not touching. And the tongue at the back is even making contact with the palate, and there's light suction. Now the airway is open, but on the mat, you may find that people engage too much with this breathing practice. They give strong inhales and exhales at the cost of more tension in the body. If we think of, you can even look at people on a physical level, and you'll be able to see, if you observe well, which side note is probably the most valuable tool I've gained from teaching in my life.
I can imagine
being able to observe bodies.
Hundreds and hundreds of hours, thousands of hours of just watching people and how they move through space and how different bodies, what they're compensating for, what their strengths and weaknesses are, whatever else.
And not looking, but observing, paying close attention. And so when you look at people, you'll have if you think about it on a scale, you have relaxation on the one end, and you've got contraction on the other. And you'd be able to see, based on how a person moves and even just physically what they look like, do they lean more on the tense end of the spectrum, or is there a sense of softness in the body, a sense of relaxation? And so the personality type that pushes, that wants to beat this thing, is potentially also breathing too strong at the cost of that softness. Try this, for instance. Sit in an upright position. I just think something practical would be more useful. You sit in an upright position. Our general cue would be perhaps taking awareness to the spine, get length in your spine. So now you've got length in your back, and imagine you need to stay in that specific posture where you've got a lot of length, sternum is slightly up, and I ask you to stay in this position for 8 hours. Muscle fatigue will kick in. But now get good posture and just soften. Just have that sense of softening, that sense of letting go. Now, sitting in that position for a long period of time will be a bit more possible. You see what I mean?
Yeah. And just as you were saying that, the comparison that came to mind was, I forget the guy's name, who climbed Taipei 101.
Is it Alex Honnold?
Yes. And what you're saying is, if you are like, I'm not even going to try something like that, right? But if you haven't climbed something for a long time, then what you're going to do is you're immediately going to really hold on, and everything in your body is going to be tensed up. And if you do that, there's no way that you can climb like that. You have to know exactly what is the exact right amount of tension that needs for you to be able to do the position that you hanging onto a building or a yoga pose or whatever. And everything else you want to be as relaxed as possible and open.
A teacher of mine says, activate when necessary, relax where possible. And
great summary.
That, along with good technique, whether it's rock climbing, whether it's jiu-jitsu, sports people, cricketers, any good technique goes a long way. And we cannot just say no technique is relevant in yoga. Technique helps a lot. So,
like you were saying, learning chords on a guitar, there's some foundational things, and if you don't have them, you're just going to make a noise.
Yeah. I mean, if you keep doing something on the mat, surely over time, if you are disciplined, your practice will get better, but hopefully not at the cost of ego. And it's a tricky thing even for teachers. I think I really don't enjoy demonstrating something to students, something that's maybe a bit more challenging or something they may find to be challenging, because instantly that internal dialogue might say, I'm never going to be able to do that. I'm not good enough. Whatever pattern
I don't care if it kills me. I'm going to do it right now.
Exactly. That's it, you know. Generally, if you spend time doing things, your body will adapt and get better. But from a teaching perspective, now you demonstrate and you show students how well you can do something. So you advance in your yoga journey, perhaps on the physical side. And the whole sort of premise of yoga is dissolving of the ego. And now your practice gets better at the cost of perhaps an ego getting bigger. You see what I mean? So it's...
Yeah. So I think I want to come back to sort of the ego and letting go and sort of that side of yoga. But I just want to hang on some of the more physical, sort of physiological impacts and what you've seen. And because obviously there are lots of people listening who may never have done yoga before. And you have this experience of actually working with top athletes, as you said, incoming. What are the kind of things that you've seen with top athletes that sort of surprised you, especially at first, and where you realize like they're these because obviously these are obviously like A-type personalities, very driven, work very hard. You were saying someone might be too tense because they're trying so hard. And I thought about the A-type personalities and these sort of highly competitive sport.
Well, firstly, I mean, huge respect for people that do a sport for a living. You know, it takes a lot of discipline, but anything in life comes at a price. And so when you do a tremendous amount of repetition, and especially for these guys that need to compete, the body may not even fully recover, and they've got to be back on the field. So in the process, the body goes out of balance. If it's a cricketer stepping forward with the left foot, swinging the bat in a specific way, the guy's bowling, you know, the right shoulder, taking a lot of strain, physio's working on that spot, next match is happening. So the body takes a lot of hammering. And so with the yoga, you hope to at least target areas of the body and allow them more range within certain joints or areas of the upper body, opening up certain areas that can very easily become so tight because of this excessive repetition. And so on a physical level, it's definitely a brilliant idea for a sports person to look into a discipline like yoga, with the additional little note of not simply sticking to this is what the posture should look like end of it. You know, giving a bit of playfulness a chance to also come through in that sense. Okay, this person's right shoulder is the problematic or the area that works a lot. How can we increase range there, or how can we protect the joint more? But at the same time, giving the rest of the body a chance to also loosen up and assist that part of the body.
Now, I can imagine what you're saying from, let's say, from a bowling action, that if someone's the shoulder hurts, the shoulder tends to hurt because of this repetitive strain. Essentially, the range of motion starts to become an issue. The body wants to protect this hurting shoulder, so you're actually losing more range of motion. Now, the rest of the body, running down to the hips and everything else, they start to hold on because they want to protect you from the pain of the shoulder that doesn't feel comfortable. So eventually you say, well, actually, we can help you loosen up the hip. It's going to allow more space in the...
Or the lower back, for instance. The lower back. Because it's a ripple effect down the body. And I mean, you must understand, they need to practice the thing that they do best, which is bowling, you know. But now the team's got physiotherapists looking after them. But they definitely benefit from doing other movements with the body to once again break that pattern of just doing that one thing. And yoga is a pretty good baseline that can cover many different movements in the body. It's not the only thing. There's other forms of movement that can definitely be extremely beneficial. But when I think of certain traditional yoga postures, think of a cat and cow. That's the type of thing you would get from a physio when you perhaps have sciatica. And cat and cow has been a part of...
So cat and cow is just where you stand hands and knees?
All fours, yeah.
All fours. And you are...
rounding your spine, tucking your chin into a bit of a cat stretch, meaning you create a bit of flexion in the spine.
Like a cat that has a fright.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And cow pose would be the complete opposite movement for the spine. So dropping navel down to the floor, looking up and creating extension or a bit of an arch in your back to stretch the back muscles.
So just flexing the spine and fairly close to a full range, the one way and the other way, forwards and backwards.
Exactly. Full extension and full flexion. That's correct. So there's certain yoga postures that you see as rehabilitation for students. And these postures have been around for so long. And it's because it's body postures that seem to be good for the body. I mean, anything that's been around for many, many years has some form of truth to it, some real value.
Ian, you were saying earlier about sort of walking on the sidewalk with the dog and so on, and kids, toddlers, and how they play around. And I remember the first time I did a yoga class, I ended up in a shoulder pose, just where you like roll back, put your hands behind your back and sort of lift your feet up into the air. And you're sort of balancing on your shoulders, back of your shoulders.
Oh, you mean Salamba Sarvangasana? Shoulder stand, yes.
And the moment I sort of found my balance in the pose, I suddenly had this flashback and realized I've done this so many times. As a kid, it was just a thing that and there are a couple of poses where you just realize, like, as a playful toddler, just like rolling around on the carpet, like doing random things and trying to stand on their head.
Exploring, investigating with the body.
Just being playful. You realize, but these are things that I've done them before, I've tried them before.
It's bizarre. My most recent class I taught, I got the students from a seated position, a cross-leg position, to just stand up. Don't use your hands, just stand up. And the expressions you see, and people going, well, this is foreign. I'm standing up from a cross-leg position without, pushing up through my hands. And so many examples. There's so many examples. Students saying to you, I remember I used to do this crab walk thing when I was young. Think of a back bend, a wheel, as we call it in yoga. And it's just something you stop doing because, I don't know if it's just life getting in the way or if we have to be more serious when we get older, but we stop doing these things. And there's a lot of value in experimenting with the body, being playful.
Yeah, I think the important question is, but is it serious, right? And I like this playful approach because it feels to me there's a lot to be said about solemnity, and what a terrible thing it is. Because if I'm going to be, I'm putting on a face of being very serious so that everyone around me can understand that I'm being very serious about this, so that they can put on those faces. We can all be very serious because I don't know why, because we're grown-ups or because we don't want someone to feel insulted, or I don't know. And it's actually stupid because in that state, I think you're less creative, which means if the situation is of concern, then you're looking for solutions. So we want to summon whatever creativity we can so we can find the solution.
Yeah.
The last thing we want to do is get all serious and tensed up and inhibit our ability to be playful with these ideas.
I think all humans are meant to be creative in one way or another. And I think everyone has the capability of being creative. And even thinking of sequencing a yoga class, I'm in my element when I can work with a group of students and just explore with them, be creative in this movement. You know what I mean? I don't ever, and I mean, this is maybe not the way a lot of teachers would approach it, but I never sit and plan a class if I teach a group. I show up. I maybe have a topic in mind. Maybe I want to talk about attention, or I want to talk about just awareness, or maybe I want to talk about spinal extension. I just have this idea, and things unfold because I allow myself to be creative. And it would maybe not be as comfortable if I don't have the foundation, meaning I do understand Yoga Chikitsa, the primary series of Ashtanga vinyasa, a specific style, or perhaps, some of the other classical styles. So the foundation is there. So it allows me perhaps to, grab from different experiences and so on in my head. But I do believe when you are being creative, you are truly in the moment. You don't sit and think about what you're going to have for dinner later.
And I get back to ego. You were saying earlier that the ego can work against you in at least two ways on the mat. But obviously, going through life, it can also cause you all kinds of inconvenience. And I think a lot of it has to do with this playfulness that you're talking about. And I think if you find yourself in a position where you are sort of putting your ego aside and you're being more playful, and you don't care what other people think, you're just doing what your body tells you to move through space, or just being playful, it sort of brings you into the present moment, right?
Automatically. It's like me requiring your attention. If I approach you, if you are a stranger on the street, and I initiate this movement where I come closer to you, you're instantly going to pay attention to the stranger walking up to you. It's not something that takes a lot of effort.
Or training.
It just happens. And so I think when you are truly being yourself, it just happens. I mean, this is maybe a little bit more philosophical, but I wonder how many people, I know, we tend to slip into autopilot because the brain is a bit lazy and it wants to find the easy way out. But how many people perhaps live a lifestyle that they don't necessarily want? Maybe it's 2.4 kids and it's this and it's that and it's that because this is the right thing to do. But what is the right thing to do? What are the rules entirely to win at this thing called life? You know what I mean?
I think you were saying on autopilot, but I think at the same time, it's not necessarily sloth. It's not just laziness. I think what a lot of people don't realize is that we have this amazing ability to story, right? To create narratives in our head. And that allows us a view of the past and the future. And so we don't remember the reality of the past. We remember the story version of what we remember, what we can observe from the past. And then we project it to the future, use imagination to create story into the future. And that's your depression and anxiety, essentially, the two of them, right?
Well said.
And so if you could find a way to actually and you hear people say be in the present moment, but you want to be in the present moment, and at least for some of the time, allow yourself to let go of your memory of the past and your anxieties and fantasies of the future, and actually just be where you are in the moment. And I think a lot of people never really experience that, or never go through that experience consciously. And I think it's a powerful tool in a world where we have this overabundance of information, people just being bombarded. There's so much. And now you're thinking about all of these things, you're trying to remember them, you're trying to also egotistically trying to hold on to all these things so that when you meet other people, you know what's been happening in the world and you can talk about all these things. But you don't necessarily need to be, and you're saying, is this the right way? Like, how much of this do you need to be carrying?
Does it serve?
And how serious should you be about it?
And spend 10 days away from society, meditate 10 hours a day, and now you need to slot back into this thing regardless, because you are a human. You're probably not going to just become a monk because there's news that'll disturb you. It's a difficult balance. It's something that each person has to figure out for themselves, but hopefully people have tools that they can use in order to find their balance, but
so can we just briefly talk about that? I mean, I think you're saying tools that can help them find the balance. I was talking about this idea of really being in the present moment, and it feels like a bit of a cliche that gets thrown around. But you also mentioned that not everyone, because some people end up being a monk in the mountains somewhere, sitting in a cave, meditating for the rest of their life, and they find blissful, like they don't know what's going on in the news, so they don't have to worry about this stuff, and they don't have much of a future, so they don't care about that either. But it's not for everyone, and for people living in the real world, and people have different demands, different personalities, different workloads, and so on. What are sort of that you would consider to be very easy, simple steps for someone, maybe in terms of breath work, trying to gain control over their sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system to try and regulate their emotions, not to be overreactive in situations, not to let the ego drive something that you're going to regret?
So, meditation firstly comes to mind. We don't even have to call it meditation. We can call it the opposite of everything we just spoke about. All the information we get and all the craziness out there, the opposite of that would be stillness, a stillness practice of sorts. So, students would ask me, listen, should I sit still when I do meditation? It's stillness practice, meaning we practice to be still. And that is a very good starting point to simply teach yourself to physically be still.
It's okay not to move.
Yes. The next layer could be observe your natural breath. So if you're not sure if your nervous system is wired or if it's calm, I'm sure you'll know whether it's wired or calm, the baseline of it, when you become still any given time in the day and you close your eyes, and once the physical body is quiet and it's not moving, and you observe not a breath that you got from your yoga teacher, your natural breath, you will find that as you sit, you will breathe less. It'll be softer. It'll be lighter. This is maybe not the approach to follow. If you are feeling anxious, then we can look at a breathing practice, something to do to first calm you down, bring you back into a bit of a rest and digest state. But for daily practice, and you see this from so many people across the world, fund managers and successful business people. I think of Ray Dalio, for instance, and he's this guy that runs Bridgewater
Associates.
And I mean, he's done his thing in this lifetime, and he swears by meditation just to allow the body and the mind to be a little bit more calm. But it's a practice. It's not taking a pill or I need to lose weight. I see there's alternatives. Usually something that's worth it takes a bit of effort. It's very seldom in life that you get instant gratification and it's lasting. Maybe you do get that out there, but from my experience, usually putting in some work is where the magic lies.
It's sort of fun that comes from the discipline. What do you recommend for someone? I mean, if someone's never done it, maybe try 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. Just
yeah. I mean,
I do know a lot of people have a lot of difficulty because they sit down and they very quickly feel, but now I feel fidgety.
And that's your practice.
Let me just check my phone, or I'm trying not to think about things, but I'm thinking about things. I'm not good at this. It's like yoga. I'm not flexible. I can't do yoga.
Well, for that type of person, I would say get up early enough so that you can sit until the thought of I'm fidgety can go away. And you're not pushing it away. You sit and you observe and you accept. Much like we need to accept everything in life. You accept that I'm fidgety. My system is used to being fidgety. I'll sit, observe it. Everything will pass. Everything changes. I suppose it's the only impermanence, is the only constant in this world. So sit and don't be too tough on yourself if this specific sitting was difficult, because that is the practice, to sit, just observe, just become still, and not to react. The next day you come back.
Your nose gets itchy. You try not to scratch your nose.
You know what?
And at some point you go, okay, I'm going to scratch my nose. Oh, it's itchy. Okay, well, tomorrow try again. See if you can not scratch your nose.
I promise you, if you've spent enough time in an upright position, in silence, you will notice the itchy nose, that sensation will come up. And if you sit and you observe, it will pass. You just have to give yourself a fair chance to experience it for yourself. That itchy nose will pass. Next time you do this, simply wait for the itchy nose. That's how long you sit. You wait for the itchy nose sensation and you observe, you don't react, it'll pass. That's a step in the right direction.
That sounds like solid advice for someone starting off on this path.
Great starting point.
Tell me, just sort of in your years of teaching, what is sort of your major, if you have to try and catch it in, I don't know, one sentence or short paragraph, like what is the one major observation that you've made that's changed how you view yoga, movement, people and the way they move through this world? Maybe some assumptions that you started with and that you've debunked for yourself in all of this time.
People are people. Doesn't matter where you are in this world. We are all people. We all need the same things. We all have the same inner dialogue of insecurities, of belonging, of being good enough. We all doubt ourselves. This personality type is a bit more flamboyant. This personality type is more quiet. We all need the same thing. We need connection. We need acceptance. We need love. It's how we react to these things around us that I believe makes us a bit calmer in this world. So if a yoga practice is a tool that can allow you to regulate yourself a bit better, brilliant. If it's breath work, if it's meditation, these are the fields that I'm familiar with, great. If it's something else, having that practice, that's what we need, because let's face it, this world is not entirely a breeze, but people are just people. We all need the same things. The Beatles were right. All we need is love.
I think that's lovely. Also like what you say, it's about that reactivity, right? And figuring out a way, and that's where the discipline comes in. How do I prevent myself from just flying off the handle, either in a direction of being angry or despondent or sad or whatever the case may be, to actually take a moment and train through discipline yourself to be able to take a moment before you react, to think it through, to take like you said, there's some things in life you can't change, but your reaction is absolutely yours.
Especially after an exhalation, not instantly, reacting.
Yeah.
Give an exhale first and
Just give it a moment.
Just a moment.
Okay. I really want to slap you right now, but okay.
After the exhale.
Maybe I'll slap you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Eon, where can people connect with you on social media or websites, or hear more about your workshops or teacher training courses?
Yeah, so all the regular social medias, Facebook and Instagram. I think Instagram more so than Facebook these days, but Eon Yoga, that's the handle. My website, eonyoga.com, and whatever else I've got planned while I'm in Cape Town will definitely be on there. So you can check it out on there.
Lovely. I'll definitely put that in the description as well. Eon, I want to say thank you very much. I really enjoyed this a lot.
Thank you so much.
Okay.